gentlemen that are our guests. And so I'll introduce Dan Chace, the director. I probably first talked to Dan about a year ago, and I think Frank Beaver from Michigan, a film professor, put this film on my radar screen. And so I talked to Dan. I said I want to, I like bringing movies from Ann Arbor out to New Hampshire because we have a few Michigan alumni out here who might be interested. And we've been talking on and off. And then about 3 weeks ago, I reached out to him again. I thought, geez, we don't have a football game to watch for a couple weeks. There's a bye game on Saturday. This club needs something to do. So I called him up, and as it turned out, they're going to be headed to New York City tomorrow to screen this movie at the Real Recovery Film Festival. And so he said, well, maybe we can make it work. And we've been sort of talking 3 or 4 times a day for the last couple of weeks. I'm sure he'll be glad to have me out of his life here. But so let me introduce Dan. He grew up in Ann Arbor, went to my high school. He's a Huron River rat, and Michigan grad, Yale grad, and now director and producer of this movie. So Dan, thanks for being here.
Thank you, and thank all of you for coming out on a beautiful New England day to share this film with us. I thought that I'd get bored of watching this movie after seeing it 30 or 40 or 50 times now, but I'm embarrassed to say that I love it more every time. I want to thank Jonathan, first of all, for doing this. If we could have this kind of experience whenever we screen the film, I mean, this would be our hope. This is a beautiful venue, and it was very well organized, and Jonathan, you did a great job. So you've got a great this is, as you can tell by the film, this was a dream come true for me. It started in elementary school when Billy Taylor came into my school and I got his autograph. Even before that, when my dad took me into Michigan Stadium as a kid. And so it's rooted in that kind of dream that far back. And perhaps foolishly, I thought that as my first film, that when this film finished, automatically red carpets would unroll and sales would be generated, and it would all happen automatically. But all we've really done at this point is create a product. We've created a film that we're very proud of, and the next step now is to try and get it out to the world. And so screening events are important. We hope to get into some more film festivals. We hope to do more alumni screenings. We're very proud of the fact that the film is going to be presented starting on Monday night on the Big Ten Network. If you haven't seen it, the Big Ten Network has a series called Coaching Icons that they've done, and one of the segments obviously was on Bo Schembechler, and because of a meeting that we had, Billy and I and my co-director Bob Hercules went to the Big Ten Network to try and pitch this idea, and they said, well, we don't really produce films of this kind, but we're making this thing about Bo Schembechler, and now that we know the story, he didn't know about Billy's close relationship with Bo Schembechler, but because of that, he included a segment on Billy in the Bo Schembechler piece. So if you haven't seen Coaching Icons, you might want to see the one on Bo Schembechler to see what they did. But that sort of made the introduction for them, and they were happy to pick this up, and we're happy to have that exposure. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Wherever we go now, and this is really the first formal alumni screening that we've done, we want to try and build a family behind this film, and not just Michigan alumni, but people in recovery, other groups that are interested in this film. So it's my hope that if you will, before you leave today, certainly leave your email address with us. Jonathan's got a sign-up sheet out there. We'd like to stay in touch with you about the film and consider you a friend of the film, and let you know if there's other events, if you have friends that you can refer to the film, maybe people that would benefit from viewing it, we'd love that. We have copies of the film available here, which we can sell if you're interested in picking up a copy or two.
Can I say about the copies you're selling here? There's a 22-minute bonus feature, a week in the life of Bo Schembechler as he gets ready to kick Iowa's ass.
I'm sure to the audience.
You can watch this on the Big Ten Network, but you won't be able to
Yeah,
see that
this is,
unless you buy
I'm
the
glad you
DVD.
mentioned that. This was again, and Bill has taught me that, you know, there are no accidents, and this is all kind of happening for a reason, but we had a connection in Chicago with the man who owns this piece called Vintage Bow. And so some of the footage of Schembechler at practice came from that film, and we made contact with this guy, and this piece was on TV in 1971, I think. You know, it's a half-hour piece, and it's so old now that the guy who owns it didn't really care. He's like, you want to do something with it, and he's letting us have it for a very cheap price and including it with our DVD. So that's a bonus feature. We should probably have more bonus features, but it's something that's great. And if you look closely at that film, you can see Taylor and other Michigan guys from that era, but you can identify Bill in a couple of shots in there very quickly, so you can see him in that. Let's see, is there anything else? I don't think so. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to my hero and friend, Dr. Billy Taylor. You know, I feel better already.
Love New Hampshire.
It was the big house.
I didn't know you guys cursed out here until I heard Jonathan say kicking Iowa's ass.
Yeah, well, remember, Jonathan grew up in Ann Arbor.
Oh, very good. You must have went to Michigan.
No, but I went to Huron.
Oh, okay. That was pretty sharp, yeah. How you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, I'm loving it out here. I want to come back, and I am going to come back because I was telling Dan when we were driving up, I'm glad you do listen to some of the things I try to tell you. It's character. But I was telling about this book I read by Thornton Wilder, Theophilus North. Any of you guys ever hear of it? But anyway, he writes about a lot of events in his life that occurred on the eastern shoreboard here, Connecticut and New Hampshire and Maine. But anyway, I won't get into that. But it was beautiful, you know. So yeah, we're here in Concord. I had made a lucky guess, I suppose, when we were riding. I think when John, I said, "This must be Main Street." He says, "It is Main Street." You know, Barberton's a small town too. How many people live in Concord? About 40,000. I think growing up it was 20 or 25,000 in Barberton. Say you learn to fear Jesus in a small town. But anyway, so you guys, I'm ready to answer any questions that any of you may have. And thanks, Jonathan. Before we get started, and who is it? Jimmy and was it Sherry?
Shelley from the
Shelley.
theater.
Yeah, and the Alumni Association. Thank you guys for inviting us.
Just a comment, I really appreciate the tightness of the movie. It moved very well, the shots were great, and I just thought it was well produced, so.
Thank you for that.
You had a question, sir?
Yeah, I do a lot of public speaking, and I like the life lessons that we see in sports, and I'm throwing back to the exact end-around run, and I see 32 throw the block for you. Is that Shuttlesworth?
No, that was Fritz Seifert.
Okay,
Wow.
Yeah, Big Ed threw a lot of blocks for me, though.
yeah, but in our lives, people throw blocks for us too, and the woman that the red van woman.
Yeah, my sister, Cheryl Carson.
Yeah, and
A lot of people think she's my wife, so I just want to...
I was expecting that to happen.
No,
I
David.
was watching that, I was expecting that, but, now, you went right from hearing the voice of God to the woman in the red van.
Absolutely.
See, I had the same experience. I heard the voice of God, and I bypassed hospital, rehab, and all that stuff. But that was you didn't go anywhere else to
Nowhere else.
program or anything. It was hearing the voice of God, and then right to the woman in the red van, and then plugged right in. that seamless of a transition.
It is, you know, it was a miraculous day, and I never will forget it. And most people's recovery or turnaround is maybe not that dramatic, but just as clear as we're hearing one another talking, I heard that voice, and it called my name. It scared me to death. So the next thing that I was being commanded to do was find the lady in the red band. I was running down Jefferson, you know, and I crossed the block, and I looked and I saw that band, and I skirt, you know, and knocked on the door, and I asked for her, and her workers, you know, were ready to turn me away, and she came to the door, and I just looked at her, and she was looking at me. I said, God said you're going to give me a job. And she was like, what did you say? So I repeated it, and, you know, she says, well, I don't play with the Lord, you know, so, you know, she said, I don't have anything to do around the house here. She has these adult foster care facilities, but I had a ton of dirt that was delivered at one of my other homes, and I needed it spread around and whatnot. So, you know, just fast forwarding, we went over there, did that. She talked about that in the movie. But what happened to me that day was truly a miracle, because man, human, as we know, could not have changed me so much. In about 6 hours, I went from 2.5 years of homelessness and living on the streets to becoming gainfully employed, a real bath, other than, you know, hitting the pits like in some bathroom somewhere, and shave and shower. I was bearded. And me, I weighed like 240 today. I played like 215, 220. I was down to like 165 pounds. I was looking pretty scary, you know. But I had a job, and it was room and board and pay. I had a place to live, a real bed, you know, car to drive. Well, I didn't drive that same day, but, you know, the van was available there. So, you know, if there's, and the greatest thing was taking away my addictions. This last month, August 17th, made 16 years since I've had
Hey, Billy, could you, I mean, everybody here, not everybody, most of us, never had a chance to meet Bo Schembechler. I mean, could you give us your best memory or your best Bo impersonation, something he said to you?
Bo. I love that man. I miss him. I think about him every day. There's pictures all around the house, even one in my bedroom. But I can share a Bo story with you. It kind of, well, we did it. We talked about it in the film. But that was let me see, a Bo story. Okay, here's a short one. I was on the first team that he coached there at Michigan. And I remember we went out for spring, we started spring ball. And we were in two-a-days. Yeah. Spring practice, anyway. It was about, I don't know, 88, 90 degrees. And, you know, we were hit. That's all we did. And everybody was so hot, and everybody was so tired, and we were just sweating. And Bo called, he blew his whistle and called everybody up, you know. So we circled around, and we thought we was going to get a break for some water. And he says, you guys got to get in shape. You know, he says, oh, sun god beat down on us. We need 98 or 100 degrees. And we was looking, we said, this man is nuts. I told my teammate, I said, I told you he was crazy. You know, but, well, that's a short one. Yes, sir.
One of the books about Bo, they talked about when he first came to Ann Arbor and all the craziness. Can you remember what he said about Ann Arbor and free love and all that kind of stuff? Because when he was driving around a car with one of his cohorts, I think there was some discussion about it.
He was cursing, talking about the hippies on campus and all of this political stuff. I know he was, one thing that really irritated him, because on the news and radio, whatever, everybody was saying, Bo Schembechler, Limburger, or stuff like that. He says, "Ah, damn it," he says, "these people can't even pronounce my name. Hell, I told them just call me Bo." So, but he was just a character, you know. I just so happy to have met him and been coached by him and got to know him. And at first I really didn't like him. I didn't like him. I didn't like his coaches. I didn't like anything about him, you know. And you know, just that's just fate, you know. It was one of the best things that ever happened, because when we read that he was going to be our coach, and I was thinking about going to Kent State, which was right down the road, or going somewhere, you know. I really didn't want to come back to school, and but it turned out to be just one of the greatest things that's ever happened. When I first met Bo, my first recollection, I was about 9, 10 years old, and Bo had played ball in Barberton, and he went on to Ohio State and was coaching, and so he was, you know, this big time guy in Barberton, small town. So I was with my mom in the bank, and Bo's mom worked at First National Bank, and we had a little small account there, I suppose, you know. So he was in the bank, and all of these people started gathering around and making a big fuss of him. And I was like, looking, I said, "Just look like another white guy to me."
We all look the same.
And, you know, little did I know that later on in high school, our paths would cross, and I thought it was a pretty cool thing. He was inviting us down to Miami. He was really, you know, pursuing myself, Tom Darden. And I found out later that he had tried to get Jim Manage and Dan Deerdorf there from Ohio, too. And, but it was just a journey, you know, that one of the best things that's ever happened in my life, because people like him, you just don't meet every day, and I meet a lot of people. Just the influence and the presence of him. And what a lot of people don't know, he was really a really soft-hearted guy, you know, but that's not the image that most people had of him, you know. Because after graduation, it was just different. But he was always like a coach and a father. Even after playing with him, you know, I would always call him old man, you know. But I remember a few days before, it was a few months before Bo passed, we were up in Saginaw, Michigan, with Tom Slade, who played with me and became Bo's dentist after graduation. And there was this young woman that was following me around, and she was wanting my autograph, and I gave it to her. Then she come back later and she brought something else for me to sign. And then she was just following me around, you know. Said I was one of her favorite players. And I noticed across the room Bo was looking, you know, so I was like, oh my goodness. So anyway, when the girl walked away, he says, "Taylor, come here." So I walk over. I said, "What's up, old man?" He was sitting. I had my hand around his neck. He said, "Girls are trouble." So, you know, I said, "Coach, you know, I'm over 50, you know, I think if I don't know that by now, you know." Yes, sir.
Actually, something you just said was a great transition for something I wanted to ask you. First of all, congrats on a really strong film. It's a great film, and very moving. Your story is just incredible, so I'm glad you're here and not somewhere else that you could have been. The question I have is, I went to Michigan and I worked for the Michigan Daily, and I remember being down on the field photographing games.
Daily.
And that in itself felt special, just being there on the field and incredible stuff going on around you. So I can only imagine what it was like to be out on the field playing with all these people going nuts, and then to be the star player, the best player out there. It must have just been an incredible sense of energy and adulation and celebrity on campus. And I remember when I was there, you know, football players were kind of semi-celebrities. So one thing the film didn't address was whether, I mean, there was incredible tragedy in your life that the film suggests, understandably, kind of plunged you into addiction. But I also wonder if the come down from that celebrity and that sense of adulation and all the incredible positive reinforcement you must have been getting every day made the crash deeper. and then harder to get out of?
I don't know. You know, there was this website someone told me about years ago. It was afterglorydays.org or something like that. Because there's a lot of research and data that support, you know, what you're saying about athletes. Like all sports, after the glory days are over, many of them take a dive. You know, like depression, divorce, bankruptcy. It's just it's a whole lot of things, you know. But I don't know. I know I suffered from depression, and it was undiagnosed, and I self-medicated. The other part, just not playing, it bothered me somewhat, but it wasn't that bad. I think if just that alone, I would have made the transition. But it was in 9 months. January, my mom, uncle and aunt in June, September, Valerie, and I was like 21, 22 years old, and I just couldn't take it. And you know, that could have had something to do with it too. But I know the main thing was the tragedies in my life.
I think Gary Moeller, we have a little clip of Gary Moeller, former Michigan assistant and head coach, where he says if he was in, because that was one of the questions, you know, why didn't Bill make it? You know, why wasn't the pros more successful? But Moeller says if he was in shape, if he was focused on it, I have no doubt that he would have made it in the pros. But you know, was he really in the right frame of mind? So I get the sense of someone who's lost, preoccupied, is in a different, is in the wrong place.
I definitely was. I mean, I loved football, loved playing it, and I had planned on this long, successful career, but I was just zapped. When that happened, I really didn't care. You know, I was just totally defocused. And for 3.5 years in the NFL and CFL, I just bounced around one team to another, was plagued with injuries. But, you know, I wasn't in the game, and not in my head, you know, and it was just make a little money, and I didn't know what else to do. I was just kind of lost. And one thing I didn't do was reach out for help. You know, I remember another situation with Bo after I wrote the book, and I called. I said, "Coach," I said, "Hey, the book is almost done, and I'd like for you to write the forward or something in it." He said, "Well, Taylor, I gotta read what you wrote first." He says, "I never liked that who was the head coach in Atlanta? I never liked that Van Brocklin thing. You know, he said, you're supposed to keep it in the family." I made some comments about the racism and discrimination that I was facing down there. So I said, okay. So I says, I'll be up in Ann Arbor in about an hour and a half, you know. So I drove the manuscript up, and I gave it to Bo. And he says, I'm going to Florida, and I'm going to take this with me. I'll call you, you know, after I read it. So a few days passed, a weekend passed, a few days later, I get a call from Bo. He says, come on up, I've read it. So I dropped what I was doing, you know, and he's still coach, and I drove up, and he says, sit down. So I sit down in front of him. He said, you know, you made me cry. I was like, you know, what do I say to that? You know, I kind of scratched my head a little bit. I said, Coach, I didn't mean to make you cry. You know, he says, why didn't you tell me about some of this stuff? You know, I said, well, I was embarrassed and ashamed. And he said, okay, so you should have told me. That was interesting.
One of the most poignant details about Bo that I wish that I had been a fly on the wall, but when he drove you to Oxford, that seemed like an exceptional thing.
Yeah, he actually flew out with me when I had to, self-report to prison. He and Sam Carpenter, Butch Carpenter, was one of my teammates and roommates, and his dad was kind of like a godfather. So he and Bo, flew out, and, he told me to watch your back and be careful, that kind of thing. And he did caution me, and it was true. He said some people are going to challenge you because, you know, you played at Michigan, you were an All-American. And I had a fight and got thrown in the hole because some guys, you know, they wanted me to play flag football with them. And I told them, so they kept on, you know, and I kept saying no, and then they called me a few words I won't say here in Concord. So I said, okay. So I played and I ran a sweep, and I could have kept going, but I stopped, and the one guy that started this, I decided to say hello to him. So I'll just leave it like that. And we left him laying down, and then I got thrown in the hole. And, but I didn't have any trouble after that.
I just want to say one last thing about that, but Bo did end up writing the foreword for your book, and although you can imagine, I would have loved to have interviewed Bo Schembechler. Can you imagine what he would have contributed to this film? All that I was able to take were his words from the foreword to Billy's book, and we used those in the quote at the end. But that was something that Bo wrote about Billy Taylor specifically, and there's more in the book. It's a longer passage, but we just took an excerpt. So I feel like in that way, Bo participated in some measure. Also, his wife, Kathy Schembechler, gave us permission to use Bo's image on the cover of the DVD, and we've had some contact with Kathy Schembechler, and so I feel like he has a little bit of a part in the story that way directly.
Yeah, this, you know, how things kind of have a tendency to come around full circle, and a lot of things are just meant to be, and that's something else I have to tell Dan. Very few things are just accidental, you know. Because I look at, say, the book, for example, and I didn't bring any with me, but they sell them at the MDN. But inside the cover is a picture, Bo's first year. We were coming out for spring practice, and we were running out of the tunnel, and I'm leading the pack, and I'm right behind Bo, and he's running. It's very young Bo Schembechler, you know, and this is like in '69. Although I'm only 39, you got to do the math. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. But that picture is inside the cover of the book, and that picture was taken in '69. How long ago was that?
Well, your math is a little fuzzy, so
44 years. And, you know, I had no idea I was going to be writing a book or a movie being made or anything. That picture is there. You know what I'm saying? It's just like kind of meant to be. He had a question.
I was going to add, I love the film, and I'm born and raised in Detroit. I've actually only been here in New Hampshire for maybe a month now, so seeing your experience in Detroit is really powerful. Do you still live there?
I live in Novi.
Okay.
You guys know where that?
Yeah, I grew up in Novi.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wanted to ask, what do you think your life would have been like this day had you not had those tragedies?
Wow. That's a good question. I don't have a clue, you know, because I just think only God knows our life's itinerary, the people you go, the things happen, the things you go through. And I really question, then I say, okay, Lord, why did I have to go through some of these things? I don't know. Along that line, I was talking with a friend a long time ago. It was like, you know, what if you went to University of Georgia, you know? Then I started thinking, I said, or Tennessee. You know, I lived in Memphis until I was 5. My dad passed, and he's buried in Memphis. But, you know, that led to some other interesting thought, because probably had my dad lived, I would have grew up in Memphis, and I probably would have been looking at, you know, one of the southern schools as opposed to Michigan. So I don't know. I'm not in charge. He is.
Well, a couple things on that too. John Bacon in the film says he's doing something that only really he could do, where all his experiences, good and bad, lead to his work that he's doing in Detroit. So the negative experiences you had have led you to the work that you've done and the good that you're doing now.
Absolutely.
The other thing, one of the other things we've talked about is because he didn't have a lengthy pro career, he did not sustain some of the head injuries that these guys that are in it for a long time, it really affects them. And so he's still sharp and able to, do other things.
Forget that.
I'm sure I'll be reminded.
Wow.
There's a question back.
Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
I was just wondering, your mother seemed, just from what was said in the film,
Another fantastic person in my life.
yes. Well, I just think she seemed to be very strong, her children needed to go to church. You have to go to church.
Right.
And that belief in God was very important to her.
Mhm.
That when you had that voice, was that, do you think that just her strength that you probably had all along,
Right.
but couldn't realize it
Yeah,
was
we woke up.
part of,
snapped out.
yeah, I just,
You know, there's a saying that says the Lord takes care of babies and fools, so I wasn't a baby when I was going through it. It's interesting. I look back at the past and I smile, although I never would have chosen those types of experiences
yeah.
had I known, what it would lead to. I wouldn't have made those type of decisions. So, I mean, clearly we're not in charge. We might think we are, but, we're not. And it's just, I don't know. My mom, she brought us up in church, and sometimes if she wasn't going, made me think about her. I said, "Mom, you going to church today?" She said, "No, I'm gonna have church in my heart today, son." So that means she's staying at home, but she's praying. I don't know. I after all of the tragedies, my upbringing, my family, friends, I didn't reach out. I just, as Dave said, I was pretty closed in. I was hurting so much. I didn't talk to someone, and I say that to anyone. So a lot of times I'm talking to young people. If you're having a problem, ask for help. Even the strangers will help you, not just family and friends. But if you don't say anything, how will anybody know what you're going through? But part of that is, I guess, maybe the macho thing or the athletic thing or something.
And depression, that's right.
Right. I can handle it. I can beat these drugs. I can handle the alcohol. It's something, because at times people would say, BT, you need to get some help, man. You drink too much. I said, man, you're an alcoholic. I said, man, what are you talking about? I'll be ready to fight. Call me an alcoholic. I'm not no alcoholic. I just drink a little too much sometimes.
I feel as though the majority of people who have turned to drugs or are currently heading down that path toward addiction haven't really experienced kind of like a full potential moment, like you at Michigan, that accomplishment, that achievement. So now, how are you able to kind of instill a sense of purpose or that drive in people who haven't really achieved much and may not believe they're capable of reaching that high point in life, something to strive for?
I missed the first part of what you said.
If people haven't, the younger kids who haven't experienced these accomplishments that you have,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know what it feels like to have reached a full potential, and they may not believe they're worthy of it or capable of reaching it, how can you instill a sense of drive into them?
Well, that's a good question, kind of complex too. I mean, but, everybody's not meant to, be a college football player. But, one of the messages that I give, if you do want to reach your full potential, whatever that is, drugs and alcohol is not the way. My message is just don't use. Because it's a dream stopper. Nothing good comes from getting high.
But then you just keep hearing the lies in the lives, and you think they're gonna stop, but they don't. So
Yeah, you know, just like me when they said I was an alcoholic, you know, I just said I drink a little too much. I found out in this business and dealing with substance abuse that denial is not just a river in Africa. Most people that you know, it's hard for a person to admit that they got a problem. You know, nobody wants to say that or ask for help, you know, but, so that's part of what I do is try to identify that with an individual, let them know that, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. Young lady?
Do you think that, like with all the help that you've done for people and all the ways you've inspired people, that right now you're in a better place than you would have been if you had just had the life that you expected after you left college and hadn't had to deal with
I
anything?
do. I mean, I love my life now. And I have been for over 16 years, you know. And I feel really good because it's confirmation of my faith, you know, that just trusting in God. And my yardstick in life is try to do the right thing and try to help somebody. And, you know, and I tell people that I have not had a bad day in over 16 years. And they say, what? You know, I say, I didn't say I haven't had a headache. You know, I had one yesterday. But I didn't say that everything has went my way on the job or with employees, or haven't said it wasn't cold or rainy, you know. But those are not bad days. That's just life. Bad days are being like addicted to drugs and alcohol, hungry, homeless, jobless, broke. You know, those are bad days. So I don't expect any more bad days. You know, we'll be around a long, long time. Yes.
How did you reconnect with your children ultimately?
It was tough, and it was tough. Children are something. Wow. It was because, you know, it was the children and their mother, and you know, I was a bad boy. So it's kind of complicated because, you know, I had lied and failed and relapsed so many times that, you know, we didn't have a relationship. We couldn't communicate because she couldn't believe anything that I said, and couldn't blame her for that because, you know, a lot of lying. And so trying to, you know, connect with her and the kids, it was always a problem. The main reason for that because I hadn't fully made up my mind to recover, to stay clean, you know. So she was always skeptical, and rightfully so. So when I did change, she still wasn't believing me, you know, and so she stayed away. But finally, this last time when I really changed, and I knew a change had occurred, I waited about 2 or 3 months, and I hadn't relapsed. I hadn't taken another drink. I hadn't used another drug, and I went through CIS to communicate with her that I wanted to see the kids, you know, and she told her, you know, about the work I was doing and how well I was doing, and so she agreed to bring the kids by, and I said, Will's getting old. He's 33. I'm only 6 years older than him. But 16 years ago, take away 16 from 33. He was what?
17.
Yeah. So was he that old? I guess so. He was 17, and Auden was like 16, 15 and a half, 16, and Mariah was like about 3 or 4. And so they pulled up and got out of the car, and the boys ran and hugged me and told me they thought I was dead, you know, 'cause they hadn't seen or heard from me in over, you know, years. And I used to call, you know, once or twice a year, but the last 2 to 3 years, I had stopped that. And then Mariah ran, "Daddy, Daddy." I was like, so, you know. So it was, that was the first day. It was, and everybody was crying and all of that, so. Yeah, so that's how it, then I would start to see them every now and then. She would leave Mariah with me while she went to work and stuff. So I started, you know, yeah, it was a process, but everything's good now. You know, my daughter's 21. She's a senior at Eastern Michigan, and she's been on the dean list the past year and a half. So she's not boy crazy. I'm happy about that. Just got her first car. When she's not in school, she stays with her mother and lives in my wallet.
You know, I think Mariah being the youngest, would you agree that that was kind of the easiest, most complete reconciliation? I mean,
It was.
Will in the film talks about a kind of, you know, a mixed feeling about, how does he put it? Bittersweet, that glad that you were alive, but sorry for the years that were gone. And we were very blessed to have, you know, I feel privileged to have had the chance to interview them, and Will in particular added so much to the film, where you get a chance to realize what it is to have a father not be present. To Will's credit, I think he has reconciled that pretty well, and he's taking advantage of the fact that he has this father in his life now, and is kind of doing his best to make up for lost time.
He really is, because he came to stay with me like 3.5 years ago, and it's supposed to be 3 months. He's still with me.
There's a lot of room in that wallet.
We have a really good relationship. He goes to all the home games with me. You know,
Get out
I've
of
had
the room.
season tickets
Okay,
since the Rodriguez years.
So,
Yeah.
we're gonna kind of move this event out of the room. I will set up at the table, but people can stay and linger and continue to talk with us. We hope you'll do that. I want to just say a couple other things too. I would love for people to write about the film. One of the things I want to do on the website is include fan testimonials. Write a paragraph. It doesn't have to be huge, or a few sentences. We've already done a little of that, but I want to do more of that, so that it's basically the fans, kind of reporting on the film. I also want to acknowledge my auntie and my uncle who are here today, Wendy and Chuck.
Also,
happy occasion to be so close here with them. So, anyway, well, let's continue, and we're going to also be around and.
Yeah, we'll go. Anybody wants to join us upstairs? We may go have a bite afterwards.
Gentlemen had one more question.
I was gonna say, how did Bo find out you needed him?
I don't know. I mean, I know he knew that I was like out there.
Because that was a number of years after.
Bo has his ways.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Probably the newspaper, don't you think?
I reached out to him after, I was stable in my recovery. And, we were working on a book, so we started to communicate. I know he told me he'd heard a lot of stuff, He wondered why I hadn't called him. I want to talk to you, man. But, he was like a father figure, especially after finishing. And I stayed away from family and friends and loved ones and anybody, if you didn't drink or get high, well, I want to talk to you. Sick thinking. Maybe it could have ended earlier if I had of or something.
But for every Billy Taylor, there must be 1,000 that don't end up in any good place.
That's true. That's true. Like I say, jail's an institution and death. Too many alcoholics and addicts die in their addiction.
Yeah, because we're all going to hit the wall. You hit the wall ill-equipped because the relationships around you weren't sensitive enough to see Billy Taylor in his, in his demise, and you make the choice to get bitter or to get better. And you didn't, like you said, you weren't willing to reach out and pull somebody else into your life in tragedy. But when you decide to go with the better route, when you have that, you know, that transforming moment, that it's light and dark, better or bitter. And
Yeah.
how long did it take? It took, you know, running across the street
Yeah.
to the right answer, you know.
Long time. I just want to thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you.